we can test our passive shoulder external and internal rotation. So we take away weight bearing, the fact that we have to actively pull ourselves into these positions, and instead we can just see passively what do we have access to in that shoulder. It tells us a little bit more precisely at the shoulder capsule itself. So we start again with the elbow at 90 degrees from our side. And then for external rotation, we're seeing how far can this hand go back, externally rotating before this shoulder wants to start to pop off the table like that. So you see I get kind of stuck here, and then I want to, if I want to crank into more, this shoulder starts to poke up and out. So you'll notice when that happens, what you want to do is stop just before that starts to happen. So in this case, I'm about right here, and then get a measurement. Is that 90 degrees of external rotation or less? Do the same thing on our important trail side arm. And again, we can measure, see, we truly have good 90 degrees of shoulder external rotation there. Now, when it comes to internal rotation, you do the same thing, just dropping palm down towards the ground. What we want to get to here is about 60 to 70 degrees of internal rotation before this shoulder starts to pop off the table like that. We are no longer getting true shoulder internal rotation here. Instead, we are getting compensation. So this is something else happening to create what looks like shoulder internal rotation. It's really more of almost scapular protraction, right? So we want to truly see purely shoulder motion. When do I start to push up into my hand here? It's right about there that starts to poke up. So that is shoulder external and internal rotation. We can also do shoulder flexion, where we raise our arm up, 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 and we want to see to what point do we get before this elbow tries to deviate out towards the sides. Once that deviation starts to happen, that's where we will mark our shoulder flexion, with this being 90 degrees and anything beyond being 90 plus. We try to get this up towards about 160 to 180 degrees before this hand starts to, again, deviate either out or in, showing that the shoulder is trying to compensate elsewhere to create that shoulder motion. Happens for me right about there. Okay, that is shoulder internal, external, and shoulder flexion. Now we can also look at shoulder abduction and adduction. So what that is, for shoulder abduction, it's our ability to go away from the midline or out towards the side like this. And so what we do to test is see at what point does our chest and sternum start to rotate down towards the side, because this is orientation, this is compensation, not pure shoulder abduction. So get a sense, beyond here is 0 degrees, and then anything beyond before the sternum starts to kind of tug and come along for the ride, right? That's where we would stop and kind of take our measurement. Do that on both sides. And then for shoulder abduction, we want to see how far can we get the shoulder across before this shoulder blade starts to come out and around. Now, this is difficult to measure by yourself, but if you had a friend, you can have them try to pin that scapula down and then bring your arm across, and this is true glenohumeral or shoulder adduction, to see, again, to what degree do we have access to that, trying to get towards 45 degrees of that shoulder adduction.